we're going to have Ethan Simpson, who is currently 2-1 with a team of Tapu, Koko, Garchomp, Salamence, Whimsicott, Celesteela, and Alolan Persian. Playing against him is going to be oh, they gave me a name and I've forgotten it, so that's awesome. So we'll just wing it. That's fine. This is actually a pair down, so one player here is 3-0, while Ethan is 2-1. So Ethan playing to stay in the tournament, and I want to go with Chance, but I'm not sure that's the right name. Obviously playing to maintain that 3-0 record and guarantee that he can go into cut. So on the other side of the field, we see Yveltal Light, I don't know its dang name, Tapu, Koko, Flygon, Togedemaru, Araquanid, and Arcanine. Flygon is a bit of a niche choice. Most of the time when people want a ground dragon type, they opt for Garchomp, who is slightly faster, hitting 102 rather than 100 base speed, and also offers more power through its attack stat. However, Flygon does bring some stuff to the table. It does have the ability Levitate, which is a very valuable thing to have, giving him an immunity to Garchomp's ground attacks, which is certainly a huge bonus to have, given the relative lack of flying types and levitators in the format this year. And the other difference is it only recently gained the move Dragon Dance, which is a move that Garchomp sadly lacks. And so if it can set up a Dragon Dance, then it will be able to outspeed the Garchomp and fire off potentially Dragon-type attacks into that slot. So we're going to go ahead and jump into Game 1. We'll see what these two trainers have selected to bring to this battle. So Ethan opting for the Alolan Persian and Tapu Koko. I'm just going to use Chance as the man's name, and if I'm very wrong, I deeply apologize. Chance going for Tapu Koko and Araquanid. So that Araquanid is certainly threatened by Ethan's Tapu Koko, firing off a very powerful electric-type attack, boosted by electric terrain. However, the threat of a Togedemaru switch-in with the ability Lightning Rod could give Ethan some pause here. On the flip side, Persian, while very bulky on the physical side thanks to its ability Fur Coat, it doesn't take special attacks very well, so it's also threatened by the opposing Tapu Koko with a potential Dazzling Gleam, or even a Twinkle Tackle, as some Tapu Kokos have carried, as well as Araquanid. Very, very powerful water-type attacks thanks to the ability Liquidation. So it can deal a lot of damage to either of these two Pokemon. Chance deciding, you know what, I'm going to protect Araquanid, see what I can do, as the Persian goes for a Fake Out into Tapu Koko. As Ethan's Tapu Koko opts to U-turn out, that's a little bit of a new one. We don't often see Tapu Koko using U-turn. Most of the time they prefer to use Volt Switch, as it uses a special attack stat that most of Tapu Koko's moves tend to be, as well as being able to deal more damage due to being a same type attack boosted attack, as well as the boost from the electric terrain. However, Ethan could have selected to use U-turn over Volt Switch for fear of running into ground-type attacks or ground-type Pokemon, being able to make sure you switch out because there are no bug immunities. So overall, a pretty dead turn, as neither player really deals a whole lot of damage, and the Togedemaru does come in here as chances Tapu Koko goes for a Dazzling Gleam, deals about 70% to Persian, thanks to that Life Orb boosting its damage. Persian does eat its Pinch Berry, is going to heal back 50%, so it's still in a pretty healthy range, as Persian goes for the Parting Shot. And it's interesting to see here that Ethan's Tapu Koko is actually slower than his Persian, indicating that it is probably not a speed-boosting nature on the Tapu Koko. So now, after the Parting Shot, Ethan is selecting which Pokemon he wants to bring in. Seeing two electric types over the field, he does opt to go for Salamence. And so that's going to fire off and Intimidate. However, these are two special attackers, maybe? Oh, I don't know the dance. Is that Gigavolt Havoc? Yeah, so Tapu Koko busted its Z move to go into Togedemaru's Lightning Rod, which is a really, really good turn for Chance, because he busts the Z move, takes no damage, and gets really good damage off with the Dazzling Gleam from his own Tapu Koko. So that's a really good turn for him. Bringing Togedemaru in, again, also going to be threatening Fake Out pressure here. So he'll have a chance to deal some more damage right away. And again, Tapu Koko and Togedemaru both boosted by Electric Terrain, being able to fire off extra powerful electric type attacks. It'll be interesting to see. However, chances Togedemaru is weakened, but not Togedemaru. Tapu Koko has been weakened by Parting Shot, so its attacks aren't going to do quite as much damage, as it does go and fire off a Dazzling Gleam. Not going to deal any damage to Tapu Koko due to the Protect, and it deals around 30 or 40% to Ethan's Salamence, as Salamence goes for a Bulldoze, so it's definitely a good move to go for. We've seen a lot of Salamence carrying Bulldoze lately in pairing with Metagross. Ethan opting to use it just for the ability to get some speed control going down. So now the opposing Tapu Koko is going to be at -1 speed, meaning Ethan's Tapu Koko is probably the fastest thing on the field right now. And I do believe Salamence is going to be able to outspeed -1 Tapu Koko as well. This Mandibuzz, however, still threatened by the electric attacks, but as we saw, the Togedemaru switch-in for the Lightning Rod ability is certainly a threat that Ethan needs to keep in mind, and he can't just willy-nilly fire off electric attacks for fear that Togedemaru will come in. As Tapu Koko goes for the Wild Charge, so this looks like it's a physical Tapu Koko rather than special, capitalizing on the 110 base attack of Tapu Koko, opting, you know what, I'm going to use its higher attack stat despite the slightly more limited move pool. And so that's definitely a good turn, being able to fire off that Wild Charge into the Mandibuzz without getting it redirected by Togedemaru's Lightning Rod. So now Togedemaru's back in, again, threatening Fake Out pressure. However, if Salamence survives another Dazzling Gleam, it's still got the ability to fire off more Bulldozes to deal, honestly, respectable damage to both of these Pokemon, as well as getting some more speed control down for Ethan's Pokemon in the back. So we do see Ethan, not wanting to take another Dazzling Gleam on his already damaged his already damaged Salamence. However, Togedemaru not going for Fake Out, instead going for Zing Zap. physical electric type attack with like a 30% chance to flinch. However, Ethan did switch his Garchomp into that slot, which is going to mean it's going to be capable of taking no damage this turn due to the immunity. So now Garchomp is out, threatening the Togedemaru. However, Tapu Koko is going to have trouble dealing damage to this Araquanid due to the Lightning Rod still being on the field. So Ethan deciding, you know what, I want to preserve my Tapu Koko. No need for it to take damage right now, and going to be able to fire off and Intimidate into that Araquanid slot. That's going to be really important. Araquanid usually attacking with very, very strong water-type attacks, being boosted by Liquidation, dealing double damage for water-type attacks. So that Intimidate will certainly help Garchomp survive any potential attacks, as the Araquanid does go for a Wide Guard, so that will protect Tapu Koko from an Earthquake if that is indeed what Garchomp gets. So both players get a little bit of positioning here, but nobody deals any damage. So once again, Tapu Koko is going to be threatening both of these Dragon-type Pokemon with a Dazzling Gleam. It's going to be able to deal a lot of damage. And Garchomp is in a little bit of a pickle if it can only fire off Earthquake. It doesn't have the opportunity to fire off a Z-move, because we've already seen a Z-move used on Ethan's side of the field, that it's not going to be able to deal damage to that Tapu Koko if Araquanid just continues to Wide Guard. The Wide Guard will also block the Salamence's potential Bulldoze, which will also mean it's not going to be able to gain a speed advantage over Tapu Koko. However, a little bit of mind games going on here. Ethan just going for the Earthquake anyways, saying, you know what, my opponent probably thinks after I've seen the Wide Guard, I'm not going to continue doing Earthquake, so I'm just going to go ahead and go for it. As the Salamence goes for a Hydro Pump into the Araquanid, deals like 20 damage. I imagine he doubled into the Tapu Koko slot, just to be sure, you know, in case one of them got KO'd or in case the Wide Guard came out to protect. That way he could at least get damage off on it. So not dealing a whole lot to the Araquanid, and this leaves Chance with 2 Pokemon against 4. Once again, Togedemaru threatening with Fake Out, and we did see the Garchomp moving ahead of the opposing Tapu Koko, so that does reveal that that is a Scarfed Garchomp. So now, yeah, Chance is going to be in a perfect position to go ahead and just fire off Wide Guards to prevent any sort of damage coming out from Garchomp, as he does choose to Fake Out into the Garchomp slot, so he doesn't have to go for a Wide Guard, and takes a Earthquake, or not an Earthquake, a Flamethrower, which does wind up being a critical hit into that Togedemaru slot for his trouble. So he does get some damage down on that Persian with Liquidation, bringing it, you know, in range where one more will be enough to finish it off. However, it is Araquanid versus the world, so it's pretty unlikely that Chance will be able to close out this game. It looks like Ethan's going to take game 1, and we're going to be back to the drawing board coming into game 2 to see who can come out on top in this best of 3. So Chance going, you know, I'm probably going to lose this game, but I may as well try and milk this for as much information as I can. And so Ethan does reveal Dragon Pulse, which is a move that we hadn't seen just yet. So that does show us the full moveset of Salamence, being Hydro Pump, Bulldoze, Flamethrower, and Dragon Pulse, likely indicating an Assault Vest, especially given the low damage that Salamence took from the Dazzling Gleam on the turn it switched into that attack. So definitely some good information that Chance will be able to make use of moving forward. I gotta see if, I'm sure Leonard tweeted who these 2 players are, so I can stop referring to somebody by their incorrect name, because I'm sure that's frustrating. Ethan deciding to switch out his Parting Shot. with his Persian to bring Fake Out in again as another option. Firing off a Dragon Pulse into this Araquanid deals about 30 or 40% damage. So it's just getting some good chip onto the Araquanid as Araquanid goes for another liquidation into the Salamence slot. Oh, it's Carl. I was close. Carl Shotsberger. So my apologies, Carl. I'll get your name right for the rest of this match. Carl, again, protecting, getting some leftovers recovery from Araquanid, and it also gives him an opportunity to see what does this Garchomp lock into, what moves is it going to go for, and because he does know that it is a Choice Scarf variant, so he will know that it's locked. As the Rock Slide connects, deals a good amount of damage. Looks like it's going to be in range for the Dragon Pulse, and that's going to be enough for Ethan to pick up this KO. So, despite seeing a 4-0, this game was definitely close, and there were several key turns where it comes down to a 50-50, and if it just rolls in your favor, when Ethan went for the Wild Charge into the Mandibuzz, there was definitely a threat of a Togedemaru switch in. So don't let the score of that game fool you. This was well played on both sides. And now we're going back to team preview while the players try to figure out what's going to be the way to come out on top in this game too. Carl obviously wanting to win, to force a game 3, and Ethan just already taken a match loss in the tournament, playing the pair up, definitely wants to win to give himself the best chance of making it into top cut later on in the day. So Carl's definitely wants to utilize that Araquanid's Wide Guard. He does have 4 Pokemon that are going to be weak to Garchomp's Earthquake, and the fact that it's going to be faster than anything that Carl has as an option, definitely something he wants to watch out for, as well as being careful for that Tapu Koko, being able to take out either Mandibuzz or Araquanid with its physical electric moves. So he's definitely probably thinking of how can I make sure preserve Togedemaru and Araquanid and still get damage off on my opponent with the remaining Pokemon I have on the field. That seems to be the key. On Ethan's side of the field, again, he saw what happened when he busted his Z move into a Lightning Rod switch in. I'm sure he doesn't want to do that again, and so he'll definitely be needing to figure out how to deal with that Togedemaru in order to allow himself to fire off electric attacks with Tapu Koko, because they're going to be very strong in terrain again. So we're jumping in to game 2 as Ethan decides Tapu Koko and Whimsicott is the play. So Whimsicott is going to offer him the ability to really threaten that Togedemaru. Togedemaru can't exactly it can't freely fake out in front of a Whimsicott who could potentially go for an Encore, really locking you in. However, that Araquanid is going to be safe for now from Tapu Koko's electric type attacks. So Carl has the positioning here. He threatens Fake Out, but it can be risky to do so in front of a Whimsicott. And Araquanid, while threatened by Tapu Koko, is relatively safe thanks to the Lightning Rod ability. So it is in a good position to deal some really good damage to that Ethan's Tapu Koko with the liquidation boost, or water bubble is the ability. I've been saying liquidation. With the water bubble boosted liquidation, it is going to deal a lot of damage. So Ethan deciding, I don't need Whimsicott on the field right now, choosing to preserve it for later. getting a really important Intimidate off on the Araquanid. However, Araquanid also is like, yeah, no, I'm out of here. Despite the extra protection I have right now, I just don't want to deal with it. And Tapu Koko protects as Togedemaru goes for a Z move. I believe that's Corkscrew Crash. Oh, it's Acid Downpour. Excellent. So this is Acid Downpour. I don't even know what the base move would be for that. Going into the Salamence slot and dealing around 30% to it. So definitely a good switch on Ethan's part there, getting Salamence in to not take the Acid Downpour that would have done quite a bit of damage to Mandibuzz. I'm not entirely sure that it was necessary to go for the Z move, or not into Mandibuzz, into Whimsicott. Not entirely sure it was necessary to go for the Z move, given that Whimsicott would be 4 times weak and has very thin defenses in the first place. But again, I don't know my calcs for, is it Poison Jab that Togedemaru gets? I don't even know. So that's definitely something that I imagine Carl had a much better plan for. As he does go for the Spiky Shield, not wanting to take any damage, as Tapu Koko goes for the U-turn out of Mandibuzz, saying, you know what, I don't have an opportunity to hit with really powerful... Don't have an opportunity to hit with powerful electric attacks while Togedemaru's on the field, so I'd rather just get out of here, get something else in that can do something instead. So Mandibuzz does set Tailwind, and Whimsicott's going to be unable to Encore it due to the Gen 7 Dark types gaining an immunity to the ability Prankster. However, given that Togedemaru did just protect in front of Whimsicott, you know, it's almost going to be forced to switch out here just because of the threat of Whimsicott firing off a Encore to force it to continue protecting. So he does. Carl does go for the switch, bringing in Araquanid as Whimsicott goes to match Tailwinds. No longer a speed advantage for either side. It's just what the two Pokemon can manage as. Mandibuzz goes for Snarl. That's going to be lowering the special attack of both of these Pokemon, who are probably firing off special attacks in general. So that, after Leftover's recovery, it looks like that Araquanid is still at full. So while Ethan did get a Tailwind up to be able to match the Tailwinds of these two, of his opponent, definitely a good turn for Carl there, getting some positioning and using Mandibuzz to weaken the attacks of both of these physical attackers that Ethan has out right now. Oh, I just looked at the Facebook comments. So Ethan deciding he wants to get his Salamence out of there, bringing in his Garchomp as Carl goes ahead and takes out his Araquanid, not wanting to put it in front of Whimsicott. Whimsicott going for an Endeavor, so that does bring Togedemaru down just a little bit as the opposing Mandibuzz fires off a Foul Play, dealing just shy of 50% to the Garchomp. So right here, a combination of Fake Out and Foul Play into the Garchomp slot definitely puts it in range to be KO'd later, especially depending on damage rolls. Probably not enough. Disregard that one. And again, firing off Fake Outs in front of a Whimsicott is always just a little bit risky. And we will see what move Ethan decides to lock himself into with his Garchomp that we do know is Choice Scarfed. Oh, as he decides, you know what? it's not the time to attack, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my Tapu Koko, and actually goes for the double switch, bringing in Salamence as well. As the Togedemaru goes for the Poison Jab into the Salamence slot. So Salamence so far has taken 2 of the poison attacks meant to be going towards Whimsicott. Salamence doing really well, switching in and taking those. So now Tapu Koko is out on the field again. It's not going to be able to damage that Mandibuzz until Togedemaru is gone. Both of Ethan's Pokemon will be faster than both of Carl's right now. He still has one more turn of Tailwind up, as well as the natural speed of these two Pokemon being pretty quick in general. However, Togedemaru definitely is going to be able to protect Mandibuzz for an extra turn before switching out. And the damage output of Salamence going into Mandibuzz just isn't going to be enough. So we do see Togedemaru going for the Spiky Shield, wanting to stay on the field to use Lightning Rod to protect Mandibuzz. However, Ethan doesn't fall for it, and he just goes straight for the U-turn off of the Mandibuzz. So that brings it down to around 50%. As Whimsicott comes back out, so again, being able to threaten that Togedemaru with a Encore, preventing it from being able to stay on the field, as Carl resets Tailwind on the turn that Ethan's runs out. So we're back. It's almost like I've seen this turn played out before, where Togedemaru is going to be threatened by an Encore from Whimsicott, forcing it to be essentially dead weight. And Whimsicott can just freely go for another Tailwind to match Tailwinds here. As he does choose to go for the Encore into the Togedemaru, definitely wants to force it there, as Mandibuzz goes for a Snarl. That is going to lower the damage output of Salamence's Flamethrower onto the Togedemaru. However, Salamence chose to go for the Dragon Pulse into the Mandibuzz slot, and that dealt, 20% or so? So Togedemaru stuck with Protect. However, it didn't successfully protect last turn, so it can stay on the field fairly safely right now anyways. And Whimsicott's going to be free to set up Tailwind now to match Carl's Tailwind. And again, gain the speed control. Now Salamence is at -1 for its special attack, which means it's not going to be able to deal quite as much damage to any switch-ins as I'm sure Ethan would like. As Carl does choose to switch out his Togedemaru into Tapu Koko, which will be in match Tailwind, most likely the fastest thing on the field. That is, of course, assuming that Ethan chooses to go for Tailwind this turn, which he does, as Mandibuzz goes for a Foul Play into the Salamence slot, and it is enough to pick up the KO. So that's a huge KO. The first one of the game, actually, for Carl. So now Ethan's got to decide, do I want Garchomp or do I want Tapu Koko right now? As he does go for his Garchomp. So the Scarf Garchomp, both teams are in Tailwind. It's definitely threatening the Tapu Koko with an Earthquake that I'm sure Carl doesn't want to take. It's really a matter of, can Ethan get rid of this Mandibuzz to prevent Carl from continuously setting Tailwind on him and forcing Ethan to play defensively. So yeah, Carl sort of has an opportunity. He can sacrifice his Tapu Koko, which I highly doubt he wants to go for. He can protect it, or he could switch in Araquanid, but he's not going to be able to switch into Togedemaru to take an Earthquake either, which is definitely something he'll want to keep in mind. However, he brings out his Mandibuzz for Araquanid. Imagine protecting the Tapu Koko, and so now Araquanid is going to be able to fire off Wide Guards to protect the Tapu Koko from any Rock Slides. So now with Carl's Tailwind running out, Whimsicott and Garchomp are going to be the two fastest Pokemon on the field right now. And we have seen Encore, so that Tapu Koko is definitely threatened by Encore. It almost has to switch out here. However, because we know that Garchomp is locked into the Earthquake, it's a very, very safe bet to just go ahead, or not locked into Earthquake, Rock Slide, to just Wide Guard to block that. As Whimsicott goes for Nature's Power, probably trying to get the electric attack fired off into the opposing Araquanid. However, Carl chooses to bring in his own Togedemaru here to absorb that attack, and the Dazzling Gleam picks up a KO on Whimsicott and Garchomp. So now it's going to be Tapu Koko versus the world for Ethan. And Tapu Koko is not going to be able to deal a whole lot of damage with its attacks, thanks to this Togedemaru being on the field. So in a turn of events, you know, this game went pretty long, but Carl was able to eventually wear down Ethan's Pokemon and get him in KO range. And once he was able to start picking up KOs, he's able to maintain positioning and finish it off. So preserving that Togedemaru certainly helped, not allowing Ethan to get Araquanid or Mandibuzz with the electric type attacks that would be super effective into those two slots. Certainly paid off, and Ethan sees that, you know what, it's kind of hopeless, goes ahead and forfeits to jump into Game 3. So definitely well done by Carl to force Game 3 very well. He played very well, turning around what happened in Game 1, and I think he definitely recognized what his win conditions are, what he needs, and how to use the tools that he has. So it'll be really interesting. I think both of these players have a pretty good handle on the opponent's team at this point. And so now it's just going to be a matter of who can make the right plays at the right time with all the information that they've been given, you know, to come out on top. So yeah, if Ethan wants to be successful in this match, he's going to have to figure out a way to overcome all of the ways that Carl has to control the field. Between Wide Guard and Lightning Rod, Carl's been able to really well shut down the moves that Ethan wants to go for. So he'll definitely, as well as the Snarl, really lowering the damage output. So that was a really well controlled game. That is definitely something that Ethan's going to have to figure out how to overcome. So once again, both players definitely trying to take their full time to figure out a game plan, not just which 4 Pokemon to bring, but also how am I going to use them. I have to select the tools to bring to the battle, and then I have to figure out, you know, what's my general game plan for dismantling what my opponent has. So certainly a wise decision, you know, even if you know which 4 you want to bring, to use this time, you know, collect your thoughts and figure out how you're going to execute what it is you need to do. It always pleases me to see players figuring out what their best move is, and I definitely think, given the play we've seen so far in this set, that that's what these two are doing. So for the first time in this best of 3 set, we get to see Flygon coming out for Carl, as Ethan chooses to go with Whimsicott and Tapu Koko. So normally Tapu Koko would be able to threaten Flygon with a Dazzling Gleam. However, we've seen that this is a physical version with Wild Charge and U-Turn, so it's possible that he doesn't have a Fairy-type move to hit Flygon with. So Flygon is certainly in a good position here to just hit Tapu Koko with a Ground-type move. And again, Togedemaru, we've seen that it has Poison Jab that it could fire off at Whimsicott, and deal quite a bit of damage in that regard as well. Oh, as Flygon goes for a feint, you know, trying to catch Whimsicott on a Protect, and Whimsicott opts, you know what, maybe all I need to do is set Tailwind. As Tapu Koko goes for a U-turn, gets some chip damage on the Flygon, actually quite a bit more than chip damage, that deals around 40% to it, so that's definitely going to put it in range for whatever attacks it might take from what Ethan's bringing in right here. And Salamence does make an appearance. I do imagine we're about to see a Poison Jab into the Whimsicott slot. I imagine that's going to pick up the KO quite effectively. So Ethan traded some chip damage on Flygon and setting Tailwind for his Whimsicott, and so now he's going to have to decide, what do I bring in here to deal damage? And we see, rather than Garchomp, Ethan decided to bring his Celesteela. So Celesteela is certainly going to be threatened by Togedemaru. We did see Salamence take out Togedemaru with Flamethrower in Game 1, but that was a critical hit, so there's not a guarantee that the Flamethrower will be enough to pick up the KO. However, we do see Salamence threatens both of these Pokemon with super effective attacks, and it is going to be the fastest thing on the field thanks to Tailwind. So Ethan's going to have to pick his target correctly, figure out what to get rid of, and be able to capitalize on these limited Tailwind turns he has, because he's not going to be able to reset it since Whimsicott went down. As Carl decides, okay, Flygon doesn't need to sit here and take a Dragon-type attack from the Salamence. However, Salamence just goes for the Bulldoze, dealing really good damage to both of these Pokemon, and that puts both of them in range to go down to another Bulldoze, thanks to Celesteela's Heavy Slam dealing a really, really incredible amount of damage to that Tapu Koko. So both of these Pokemon severely weakened. They're going to be taking a lot of damage from either of Ethan's Pokemon. So while Celesteela did have to trade about half of its HP for that turn, it's certainly paid off, putting both of these Pokemon in range for a KO, as well as getting that Bulldoze down. That will pay off after Tailwind runs out, if either of these two are still on the field at that time, because they'll still have the reduced speed due to Bulldoze. As Carl decides he is going to need his Tapu Koko later, switches out for Araquanid. As Salamence goes for a Flamethrower into the Araquanid slot. Again, thanks to Water Bubble, not going to deal a whole lot of damage, and Celesteela goes for the Flamethrower into the Togedemaru. So Togedemaru's Burn Its Protect is definitely threatened by either one of these two Pokemon, and if Ethan can get it off the field, it's definitely going to open up things for his own Tapu Koko to deal with later. However, we do know that Araquanid is going to be able to fire off very powerful liquidations. I don't think Celesteela is in range, but it's definitely not going to want to take two of them. So Ethan deciding he'd rather have Tapu Koko on the field right now, as Togedemaru goes for a second Spiky Shield, does get it, so that's a 30% chance to proc, as the Heavy Slam goes into the Togedemaru, and Bug Bite comes out into the Celesteela slot, not dealing a lot of damage, but stealing that berry that it would otherwise have wanted to eat to, restore some health after the damage it took from that initial Zing Zap from Togedemaru. Now, one thing that is important, even though Tailwind has run out, Togedemaru is still at -1 speed due to the Bulldoze, which definitely means that Celesteela has a chance of still being faster and being able to deal some respectable damage to it. However, because Celesteela is going to move after Tapu Koko, Ethan's not going to have the opportunity to KO Togedemaru and get an electric attack onto Araquanid in the same turn. So Ethan does decide Celesteela is in a little bit of a weak spot right now, not going to be able to take a liquidation from the Araquanid, decides he'd rather get an Intimidate off on it, and Araquanid actually switches out here into Flygon, potentially to be ready to take any sort of electric attack that Tapu Koko could be going for. However, Ethan goes for the U-turn into Togedemaru, picks up the KO on Togedemaru, and he'll be bringing back in his Celesteela. So that's a really, really huge turn, because it gets rid of the Togedemaru, which will allow Tapu Koko to much more freely fire off electric moves at these opposing Pokemon of Carl's. So now we do know that Salamence is carrying Dragon Pulse. It's likely enough to pick up the KO on the Flygon. However, we did see Feint. It's definitely possible to be an Assault Vest variant, but honestly, I don't know the moveset that Flygon gets, and I do believe these two speed tie, so it can also depend on how these two Pokemon have trained their Pokemon in the speed stat to see who's going to move faster. As Carl does decide to bring in his own Tapu Koko. So we have seen that this Tapu Koko is a Life Orb variant, and it doesn't have a whole lot of health, so it's most likely going to KO itself with this next attack. And Celesteela can't just protect in front of Tapu Koko, because we have seen Feint from Flygon, which is a really cool move that breaks protects and allows your partner to hit a Pokemon that otherwise would have been safe. So Celesteela is certainly threatened by the Tapu Koko. There is almost no way he can protect it if that's what Carl chooses to do. However, Salamence threatens both of these Pokemon. A Bulldoze would be able to KO the Tapu Koko, and a Dragon Pulse likely going to be able to deal enough damage to the Flygon. So Tapu Koko actually protects right here, wants to preserve itself, and Celesteela protects. So we're just going to mirror that, and Salamence goes for the Bulldoze, which is certainly a worthwhile move to make. It wouldn't have hit the Flygon, but it would have been enough to KO the Tapu Koko, which is definitely something Ethan wanted to get rid of. However, because Tapu Koko protected that turn, it's essentially a dead turn, because Araquanid comes in, and thanks to its leftovers, it just heals off the damage that it just took from the Bulldoze. So once again, Tapu Koko threatening the Celesteela. Going to be able to deal a lot of damage to it and pick up the KO if it chooses to do so. However, due to Life Orb recoil, Carl would be losing his own Tapu Koko if that's what he wants to do. And so he probably has to make the decision, do I have the tools I need to finish up this game without Tapu Koko? And so Tapu Koko goes for the Dazzling Gleam, so that's going to deal respectable damage to Salamence, but isn't enough to pick up the KO, and it does look like it goes down to the Life Orb recoil, and so now both of these attacks are going to go into the Araquanid slot, which is going to deal a lot of damage, as Celesteela goes for a Leech Seed. I definitely like that play. If Araquanid goes for an attack into the Salamence, then it's going to give it would have given Celesteela some recovery. So now it's 2v2, all four Pokemon on the field at relatively high health still, which is going to be really important. And again, Tapu Koko can't safely protect in front of Flygon, because Carl does have the option to go for a Feint and a Liquidation into Tapu Koko, which is going to deal a lot of damage. However, that Araquanid is very threatened by Tapu Koko. Firing off a terrain-boosted electric attack is going to deal a lot of damage. And Salamence being able to fire off a Dragon Pulse into Flygon, again, going to be able to do really good damage. I think the key play here is knowing, is Salamence or is Flygon the faster Dragon-type Pokemon on the field right now? That's really going to be the difference maker, as Flygon goes for the Feint into Tapu Koko. However, Tapu Koko doesn't protect, so all that does is a little bit of chip damage, as Tapu Koko goes for the U-turn and Salamence goes for the Dragon Pulse into the Flygon. So that is going to be enough to KO the Flygon, and now it's a matter of, is Tapu Koko going to survive this liquidation to be able to finish off the game, or is it going to be a Salamence versus Araquanid game? However, Tapu Koko does survive the liquidation. It still has its Z-move available, so it looks like Tapu Koko is going to be able to close out this game after finally getting rid of Togedemaru. That's been such a thorn in its side, to be able to throw a powerful electric type attack into this Araquanid to close out the game. So wow, what an exciting set this has been. I really enjoy watching players go for, and they pick apart their opponent's team, figure out what it is that they need to do to win, and then execute. And both players have exhibited that very well in this battle. So the Araquanid protects, however, this Gigavolt Havoc will break through Protect and deal 25% of the damage that it would have dealt otherwise. So Ethan's still going to get damage off on the Araquanid. Wow, it deals nearly over 50% to the Araquanid through Protect, so that would have been enough to KO Araquanid two times over without the Protect. And so we have the Leech Seed animation and the Leftovers animation, but it looks like that's going to be it for Araquanid. Very well played by Carl, also very well played by Ethan. Being able, I think the key to that match was getting rid of the Togedemaru to free up Tapu Koko to attack. Interesting to see Ethan protect there. Not like it really matters because the Dragon Pulse does pick up the KO. I guess he wants to give Salamence the honors because Salamence definitely pulled its weight there, getting those Bulldozes off to weaken the Tapu Koko and the Togedemaru. Definitely a worthwhile Pokemon in this set. So that was a ton of fun to watch. And I guess we're going to sign off and wait for round 5. And hopefully we'll get to see these two players again later on in the day. They're both going to be X1, so both still have a chance to make top cut and play for some extra CP later on.